welcome back to the bus and or home, however you look at it. It's getting there. We have been having a relatively productive day. We're putting the wall on the driver's side of the bus. So you can see the plywood is going up. We have some wires hanging out of the wall. It's a good sign, means things are getting done. So we're just going to show you real quick how we're doing this first part of the window. Early on, we took a video of drilling the holes. So we have two sets of holes here. We have a 1/2 inch hole, and then I believe it's a 3/16, so that we can get these little screws all the way through this stud and sticking out here. The reason we're doing that is for our wooden window frame. So we've got a piece of wood here, and we want to be able to fix it in place, and we want it to be sturdy. So we're going to be using these screws here, and we're going to show you how we do that. I previously made these 2x4s to create our future windowsill. So these are going to be the left and right side of that windowsill. And we came up with a little bit different of a way to attach them so that we have a nice sturdy attachment. We're using these screws here, and those screws obviously have a nice large flat head, so we get a lot of surface area on there to really get a lot of grab. We're going to show you how we're attaching these side pieces right now. All we're going to be doing is drilling a small hole in the inside edge of the window frame. Then we're going to be drilling a larger hole. The purpose of that is the small hole is acting as a through hole for the threads on the screw. The larger hole is acting as a clearance hole for the head of the screw. So we're going to actually get the grab from inside of the tube. The screw will go inside of the tube and grab onto the wood. So our friend who's been helping us out here, Stephen Muscles McNinch, is going to be drilling the hole for us, and he's going to start with the pilot hole, which is the smaller bit. So he's going to go ahead and drill the bottom and top holes. Those Milwaukee drill bits are pretty awesome. Stephen makes it look easy. And then we're going to take the 1/2 inch drill bit there, which is going to be the clearance hole for the head of the screw. And he's just going to drill that through this front wall, not the back wall here, because the back wall is going to be what the head grabs will do. Alright, so now the screw can actually fit through the hole here. So now that we have our holes drilled, you can see we just are using the 2 holes and obviously 2 screws. So we have the piece of 2x4 that's been cut down and going to make up this right hand side of our windowsill. And what we're going to do is take the screw, and we're actually going to put it through the hole, through the second through hole, and then we'll be able to drill it right in place. And this is going to create a nice sturdy sill for the window. So let us show you that in just a minute. What we are doing is making sure that this face of the wood is level with the top stud and the bottom stud on the bus. So the very bottom stud and the very top stud are more or less in line with each other. The middle of the wall kind of bows out a little bit. I'm not sure why that is. I know it's not just our bus, but anyhow, we want to have somewhat level walls, so we're making sure that we level between the top and bottom stud. We're going to be using our 6-foot level. So all we have to do is make sure that we're making contact on bottom and on top. And then we pull the wood stud here out until it's flush with the 6-foot level. So now we know we're level across top bottom horizontal stud, and this stud is also level with it. So when we screw in our wall, we're going to be good to go. So all we got to do is push it upright like that. See if I can do all this one-handed. Got my screw loaded. It's not a magnetic screw, so I'm trying to be or magnetic bit, so I'm trying to be very careful. And then we're just going to pulls nice and tight. Let me get another screw, do some one-handed juggling. We've got the top screwed in place, so the bottom can still move a little bit, and that's fine. It's actually easier to put the top one in first and then adjust the bottom as necessary. Bottom still looks good, so we're going to go ahead and find our hole. Alright, so we had to re-drill our holes. The hole was basically a little too skewed towards the outside of the bus, so it wasn't capturing any meat on the stud. Have no fear, we re-drilled the hole, it's okay. So, you know, mistakes happen, and that's alright. Get it all lined up. Hallelujah! It did it! Alright, so now we have a semi-sturdy stud there. And that's going to work for our window frame. That's how we've been doing all of them up and down the bus. So we've got all our 2x4 studs right alongside our metal studs. Really happy with the way they've been turning out. Some of them a little frustrating, just got to make sure the holes are done right. Unfortunately, we did all the holes at the same time and didn't have a good specification on how to do them. So those that were done wrong multiple times. So not a big deal. We had to re-drill a couple holes, but that's okay. And eventually these will be faced with plywood, so you won't actually see them. The plywood wall will be covering the face of it, and it'll all blend in. So what we're going to do now, because we're trying to move along so we can get another piece of plywood on the wall, we're going to go down to the bottom, to the floor, and take a look at what we got to do there. See all the prep work and work involved with putting one of these pieces of plywood in. So you can see our 10 gauge and our 12 gauge wire coming out here. Eventually this is going to be fed in the wall, and it's actually going to come out here. This is the future dresser location, believe it or not. No, it doesn't. It just looks like space right now, but picture a dresser here. That's what it's going to be. I could see it, can you? I dream about it at night. So one of these days. So what we're going to do, this is all getting ready to put the plywood on. You can see down here we've got rigid foam, not rigid foam, spray foam. It's great stuff. So the way we did the floors, we left a gap on either edge. And we're really happy with that gap. Not only does it allow, this isn't really going to expand or anything, the plywood. If we had used OSB, it probably would have expanded and shrunk a little with temperature changes, moisture changes. But with this, it really gave us a good seal along the edge. So instead of running the plywood all the way up to the metal studs on the edge, we left about between a 1/4 and a 1/2 inch gap, so right around 3/8. And we were able to fill that with foam. It really sealed the floor nicely. So we don't have to worry about all the temperature changes that are going to be affected from the conduction of heat from the outside of the bus in, because we've got that layer of foam separating it from the floor. Nice stuff. Only problem is, as with expanding foam, it expanded out and over, and we can't have that for where we're at now. So all we're going to do is take our utility knife and score it more or less level with the floor. Not much to it. Some of this has already been done somewhat. Some areas were really bad. This area, you know, almost doesn't need to be done because it's not so bad. So we just score right along. and pick it off. And it comes out level with the floor. So we have a nice joint there. So that takes care of the bottom section. We're good there. And you can see the other aspect of this that you should know. You can see we've filled all the cracks with spray foam. We're trying to take care of all the little air gaps that we see. We're not going to be perfect, but if we try to be, we'll come close. And you just pretty much have to be anal with it, I guess is the best way to put it. Not hard for me to do. Hard for some people to be anal, but not me. So we just put we're trying to fill all the air gaps in. So we'll come back to you in a minute once we've cut our 3/4 inch thick insulation for this section and this section down here. And we'll come back to you when we get to that, and then we will be putting the plywood up so you can see that happen. Pretty exciting stuff, I know. You're on the edge of your seat, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get to it. Alright, so now we've got our stud on the right side, our stud on the left side. We just need our little sill down below for the window. You can see we already have one that's forming up at the top, so we're going to have wood all the way around. This is going to be covered with plywood, but we're going to have that depth here. Well, we need the depth on the bottom, so what we did was we welded in a I think it was a 1.5 inch square tube. Yeah, it was 1.5 inch square tube, and it was 0.90 thick, so it was relatively thick tube as well. That is providing extra support for the window frame so that we're not spanning with just the thin tube here, but it's also going to double as supporting our little sill down here at the bottom. Let's show you how to do it real quick, and you can see how it turns out. Pretty happy with the overall installation and everything. Although the wood is going to be covered up, still trying to make sure we get a semi-nice piece without too many issues. This one just slides right in. Some of them, the gap was a little tight, so have a little hammer, little block, and all we do is put it up and kind of tap it until it's flush. You can see that I have the little 1x3 on the stud up here. The majority of it is on the stud, and I'm tapping the bottom. What that's going to do is push this bottom piece of wood in until it's flush with the stud. So that's how we were installing the difficult ones. This one doesn't seem to be, well, of course, right as I say that, it gives me a little resistance. So we'll just go ahead and tap it in. So we got that flush here. We'll make sure we're flush on the other side here, so we're good there. All in all, piece is looking pretty good. And now, the final little part in the assembly process, just to be tricky, the way we're anchoring this is we're taking our drywall screws. So we've got our 1 1/4 drywall screws, and we're putting them up into the stud. That sounded nice, didn't it? Sometimes it doesn't go in so easy. That anchors this point here. It'll keep everything from moving around, and now we've got a pretty solid joint, pretty solid sill in general. And take care of the other side. Bada bing, bada boom. We've got ourselves a sill. So what's going to happen? The plywood's going to come in. It's going to sit over the face of the sill. And we'll take some finishing nails and we'll go in from the front of the plywood and we'll go right into that little guy there. We're going to have a nice looking window, or at least I hope. We'll see when we get there. Anyhow, that's how we're doing the window frame. One little note I wanted to make is how we're putting the plywood in. So as you might have already heard us mention, there's a draft in the bus from the front to the back. What that means is the front of the bus on the inside is actually taller than the rear of the bus. So it gets the interior height gets shorter the further you go back. It actually is a pretty decent draft. We lose a few inches from the front to the back. Might not seem like much, but it is when you're doing all the dimensions for the wood and everything. So I just wanted to explain how we're kind of going about it to make it easy. So I'm always in favor of doing it smarter, not harder. The big thing is you have to understand what people are going to see and what they're not going to see. And one thing they're not going to see is the bottom of the floor, because we'll have molding or something there. So I'm okay if we have, you know, ½ inch, maybe even up to an inch of a gap down below. That's fine. We can fill it with some great stuff, and we can put a nice molding over it. So I'm okay with that. So what that means is we measure from the shortest side of the plywood before we cut it. So we measure from the back part of the bus. Of course, it's only 8 feet. So right now, if you see right over here, we have our last piece of plywood ending here. So all we have to do is measure about 8 feet. Doesn't have to be special or anything, but 8 feet gets us to right about here. So if 8 feet is on this side, what we want to do is measure the height that the piece of plywood has to be on this side. We want the height of the piece of plywood to be flush with our sill here. So we're going to measure from the floor to the top of the sill. And we'll give ourselves, we don't have to be exact. Everybody tries to make everything so exact. Give yourself, you know, an 1/8 inch to play with. Don't try to make it right on the money, because you're either going to be a little, you likely be a little too high, and then you can, it makes life tough. So just give yourself an extra 1/8 inch, take off an extra 1/8 inch. It's easier to shim it up to the perfect height and screw it in. So we're going to measure from the floor to the top of the stud here, to the top of the sill, because we want it flush here. So the exact measurement is 46 1/4. But what we're going to do is we want it to be a little bit shorter, so we're going to take off a little bit more material. So we're going to actually cut it to 46 1/8. That gives us a little more wiggle room, so we can move it up and down and get it into the perfect spot and screw it in place. After that, we won't have to worry about it. What does that mean for the piece when we're down on this end? Well, 46 1/4 gets us up to right here. So you can see we're going to have a little bit of a height distance between our old piece of plywood and our new piece. But we want to be flush from the top end. So all we have to do is take some of our shims. These are plastic shims, really good investment if you need to do a lot of shimming. And we'll put the shim under, and we'll make it flush to the top. So the top's going to be flush all the way down. The bottom is going to have a bigger gap on this side than it will on that side. And that's okay, because it doesn't matter. People aren't going to see it. And we'll, like I said, either put a little piece of molding over that, or in this case, all of this section is going to be, you know, washer, dryer, dresser, kitchen counter. You're not going to see the bottom part, so it doesn't matter. That little bit of extra gap, not going to be a big deal. So that's the way we're cutting the plywood to make it easy on ourselves. Sometimes you want to think those things through, just because it's not worth the extra hassle of trying to match that draft and have everything fit perfect. Would it be nice? Sure. But I'm happy with the way we've got it. So just wanted to share that tidbit with you. So let's get to the next part of the process and go from there. All right, so the unfortunate news, we're running out of daylight quick. It's sun's going down, so we were ambitious and we wanted to get a ton of stuff done. We did get a lot of stuff done, not quite as much as we wanted to, and we didn't get to show you everything we wanted to this week, but you got a good insight into the process that we're going through to get all this up and going. And next weekend, when we come back, we've already got some pieces cut to be mounted. We'll take some videos of that so you can see it. We'll finish off mounting the plywood on both walls. And I think if we're lucky, We'll start doing some of the plywood in the ceiling. We've already got that all on the bus. We just gotta get our air gun. Probably go with an 18 gauge air gun. We'll explain that one later. Probably do a little tool review on it too. And as long as there's not too much hassle with doing the ceiling, it should go pretty quick, and we're looking forward to showing you that just as much as we're looking forward to getting it done. So thanks for checking in with us this week. Check back next week, see what's going on. And here's to another day at the bus. Have a good one, guys.